In my early days of learning, I was lucky enough to learn Aqidah from my teacher one on one. It's been one of my most favorite times of my life. On my very first lesson, my teacher asked me a question. Now, for me, it was a very normal question, and I had been taught that answer from my childhood days. So naturally, I answered this question in the most natural way I could. He asked me, "Do you know the story of Iblis?" So I said yes. Then he asked me, "Okay, so tell me, what's his story? Why was he cursed?" So I carried on telling him that Iblis refused to prostrate, so he was cursed and called a regime. My teacher smiled and looked at me with a very intriguing face. He said, "Okay, good. So who did he refuse to prostrate to?" I said he refused to prostrate to Adam alayhi salam. He said, "Okay, and why did he refuse?" And I said, "Because he said that he was made out of fire and Adam alayhi salam was made out of clay, so he was better than him." And he said, "Good. Okay, so how many times did he have to prostrate?" And I said, "Only one." "Good. And whose command did he refuse?" And I said, "Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." "Good." He said, "How many times did he have to prostrate?" And I said, "Only one." "Okay, good." So here's the thing. He directly refused the one command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which was to prostrate only once to Adam alayhi salam. Now we have been given the same order, but only a bigger order. We order to prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're supposed to do this at least 34 times every day. Now, how many times do you prostrate every day? And think about where Iblis is heading. And if you're following Iblis, then where do you think you'll end up at? Brothers and sisters, it was at that moment my whole understanding of Salah changed. It was at this time I realized that not praying is not an option. It's a command that you just cannot refuse. It's just not a choice. You've been given a direct command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if you're not doing that, then you're just following the steps of shaitan. Remember the hadith of the beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The difference between man and shirk and kufr is the salah. Based on this hadith, all schools of thoughts of jurisprudence, except the Hanafi fiqh, they say that if you don't pray and you don't even feel guilty about it, then you've left Islam. The Prophet ﷺ clearly made this difference apparent. Brothers and sisters, think about why you're not praying, and also if you are praying, and think about why you're praying. If you're not making salah your number one goal every day, if you're not making salah your biggest priority in the day, then please understand there was nothing more important than salah to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. Nothing. Everything else came second. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us respite in other forms of worship. You can leave fasting if you're not well or if you're traveling. You're not supposed to pay zakat if you're not eligible for it. And you don't have to go for Hajj if you cannot afford it. But when it comes to Salah, brothers and sisters, you don't have a choice. Even if you're in bed and cannot move, you're still supposed to do your Salah just by actions. The Prophet ﷺ and his companions did not neglect Salah even in times of war. When the enemy was upon them, ready to pounce if they got a chance, they still prayed. My dear brothers and sisters, what's your excuse? I don't even want to know your excuse because when it comes to Salah, there is no excuse. Period.